Nami. The night was chilly. A few clouds were preventing the sight of the beautiful, almost full moon. The air was fresh and cold. I could smell the ocean as well as forest and dirt. It was also combined with the aroma of the night, the same that each night was filled with. I closed my eyes and took a big breath. My other senses began their awakening. I felt the sand beneath my butt and feet, bringing my legs closer to her chest. I grabbed a handful of the golden dust, and rubbing it in her palm I let it fall in a pile. I could now hear the crushing waves, and it soothed my heart. The water was rushing and I could hear each thrust. Another sound interrupted my hearing. It was a long and deep howling sound coming from the mountains. I felt scared and uneasy. I opened my eyes searching for the one person that helps me at all times to assure myself that everything is gonna be alright. I found him. He was lying on a tree root with his head and torso resting on the tree. His dry straw hat was shadowing his eyes, and it seemed like he had fallen asleep. However, the rise and falling of his chest could not fool me. I spent a few seconds staring at his figure. His torso was necked and his strong muscles were glistening under the moonlight. His arms were resting on his lap with his palm hanging on the inside of his thighs. I could see his wounded knuckles from the punches he's been giving to those villains in the New World, and speaking of scars, the big X on his chest looked painful. I've always wanted to touch it and trace it with my fingers, but that's inappropriate between two crewmates, although I bet he wouldn't mind. I got up and stepped closer, finally sitting next to him. "What are you thinking about, Luffy?" I spoke carefully and calmly so to not wake anyone else up. "Nami," he said, tilting his head upwards to meet my eyes. He then turned his gaze towards the sea and mumbled, "Sunny. I hope she makes it." "She will. We have the best carpenter, and she's strong. She's a crewmate of ours after all." "You think so?" he asked me, looking back at me again with a spark of hope in his big brown eyes. "Yes. Don't doubt that." He smiled, satisfied with my answer. My mind couldn't help but return back to last night's events. We had the upper hand in the fight against Fujitora. Luffy, Zoro and Sanji were doing their best fighting the Navy, and the rest of us were supporting them fighting common soldiers. However, it was a fight on the sea, and that was making things more difficult. Fujitora used his final move. He raised huge rocks from the sea in the air with the power of his devil fruit, and threw them with extreme gravity force onto our ship, destroying one mast and punching holes onto the deck. I could still feel the agony on everyone's faces, and especially Luffy's. He still wasn't over with his fight, but he had a severely wounded crewmate and knew he had to run away. His eyes hid so many feelings. He pulled back his fist, ready to throw another punch, until Zoro spoke up. "We need to leave, Luffy. You are the captain. Make sure to take the right decision." Luffy contemplated, and the logical side of him won thanks to his vice captain's words. We managed to escape with the help of the wind and coup de burst, and we desperately searched for a new island. This was the only one around, and we docked here for as long as Frankie needed to repair Sunny. Luffy was feeling down since then, and I could tell. He tried covering his feelings with his big smile and optimistic attitude, but deep inside I could see that he was hurting. I wanted to help, but it was obvious that he needed space since he removed himself from every gathering the crew was having. The sun had started to rise in the horizon, and me and Luffy got caught in the mesmerizing beauty of the sunrise. We sat there in a comforting silence, and deep in our thoughts experiencing the start of a new day. I was captivated by the vast sea and fell fast asleep, relaxing to the music of this island. Luffy. I was exhausted, so I lay down on a tree to sleep for the rest of the night. After yesterday's encounter with Fujitora, I was furious. I was hurt. I was disappointed with myself. I could not defend my ship, my friends. I had to run away. I was helpless again. I had promised not to run away again, not to lose again. And here I was breaking that promise to help my friends and crewmates. The other side inside me was screaming that this was the best decision. It was the only way I could help my ship and friends. The Admiral was strong, and I just had to get stronger. I smiled at the thought of not giving up. That was more like me. My eye caught a glimpse of Nami walking towards me and sitting next to the coast of the beach, her feet almost touching the wet sand. Her orange locks were swaying in the air, and I could smell the orange scent coming off of those locks. They were bright in the light of the moon and beautiful. Her slim figure was exotic, like a water fairy making a stop to relax from flying. Her long slim legs were playing in the sand along with her hands. She shivered. I was watching her relaxing in the moonlight. I smiled. She suddenly turned around and stared at me. I was quick to cover my eyes with my hat so that she wouldn't know I was looking. I don't know why I did that, but it felt right. She was staring for some time, and she didn't know I was able to look at her through the straws of my hat. She was a crewmate like all the others, but she was undeniably and objectively beautiful. Robin was too, but in a mature way like a gourmet meat, while Nami was like a fresh, baked home-cooked steak. She was already starring for quite some time till she decided to get up. Her bikini bottoms were covered in sand along with her butt. She dusted off in an attempt to clean herself from the dirt, and turned around. She sat next to me, and my thoughts were once again occupied by yesterday's tragedy. She was concerned, and I felt her kind words bring me back to life. It was already sunrise, my favorite time of the day, when I can think about Ace since it reminds me of him. Despite not sleeping at all last night, the sunrises always filled me with energy. I hope you are watching me, Ace. Wherever you are. I miss you. A weight was added on my shoulder. I turned my head and saw that Nami had dozed off. She was lightly snoring with her head tilted and resting on my shoulder. After a couple of minutes I thought she might be uncomfortable like that. I put my arm behind her knees and the other on her back and carried her princess style to a mattress we brought from Sunny under a tree's shade on the beach. I carefully placed her on the comfy mattress, and after I covered her with a light blanket that reached her shoulders, I headed to the forest to do some training. I was panting heavily from the training. 4 hours had passed of hard labor, and I decided to quit for the day. Sanji had stopped his training an hour ago, and Zoro was planning on staying for 3 more hours. I dried my sweat with a towel and drank half a liter of water before heading back since I was hungry and breakfast would be served any time now. I followed the smell of freshly chopped fruits like coconuts, toasted bread and hard-boiled eggs and ended up on Sunny and inside the kitchen. One wall was broken, but the rest of it was saved or fixed. Sanji, I'm hungry. Shut up. Food will be served in an hour. You stink, go take a bath. But Frankie's repairing the bathhouse on Sunny. I can't take a shower. I don't know. Go dive in the sea. I'll drown. You are not getting any food stinking like that. You'll ruin the flavor for my beautiful Robin-chan and Nami-san. Sanji said nothing and continued chopping a banana for Nami's and Robin's smoothies. I went outside smelling my armpits on the way. I smelled bad, but not too bad. I got off of Sunny and took a soap bar and a towel with me, thinking I could bath where the waves hit the sand. What are you doing there, Luffy? Robin asked calmly, glancing over my shoulder curious, as I tried rubbing the soap bar in my palm with salty sea water. I'm taking a bath. Sanji said I smell bad and I get no food if I don't wash myself. You indeed have sweated. Why don't you go in the river? You can even take your clothes off and take a proper bath. I took one this morning. You are so clever, Robin. I'd never think about that. She smiled and laughed while heading back on her deck chair with her book in one hand. Good luck, Captain. Good luck? With what? I sat there confused. However, I quickly snapped out of it and headed for the river. Reaching the coast, I pulled my shorts down and threw my sandals at the side. I let the soap and the towel fall on the grass and sat down at the water's edge, splashing water onto me until I heard a sharp intake of breath. Nami, Robin, had taken her bath when she invited me to take a one as well in the cold river water. She got up, dried herself, and left when I realized I had forgotten my towel. If that was not bad enough, a seagull had taken my clothes and there was no one to help me around. My luck sucked. Robin had left, and I was next swimming in the water, waiting impatiently for a deus ex machina, a solution magically to appear, until I heard ploughing sounds of water behind the bush that had grown almost in the river and was cutting its force. I approached carefully and slowly, peeking from the branches of the bush. I could see nothing and the water splashing became more intense. I tilted my head to the side of the bush and saw something I wish my eyes could unseen, and at the same time I loved that I did see. Luffy was on the other side next to the edge of the river with his knees on the ground. His hair had soap which he was washing off, his muscles were soaked and shiny, his legs were spread open, and his manhood's red tip was peeking outside of the water. I gasped at the sight. This side of him looked different. He looked hot. Super hot. My body was reacting from the sight of him. He heard me gasp and turned around. He made eye contact with me and walked towards me but didn't peek through the bush. I quickly covered my boobs with my palms and sunk my body in the water. I could swear he was blushing. "Hello, Nami." "Sorry to interrupt your bath," he said with his back turned to me. I had closed my eyes at this point, although the image of his cock was printed behind my eyelids. I mean, it was not how I imagined Luffy. Not that I imagine every crewmate of mine naked, but Luffy was surprisingly fire. I peeked through one eye and caught a glimpse of his butt. It was firm and round. I'd never imagined something like that under his baggy jeans shorts. This angered me. A sudden wave of guilt for looking at his naked body with such horniness washed over me when all he's done was helping me, and even at this moment he was trying to not make me too uncomfortable by turning his back. "Why are you here, Luffy?" "I needed a bath, Sanji said so. And Robin told me to come here." "I see." She knew. "You don't go naked just like that. Around everybody, but you are naked too." I blushed like crazy. "He saw me too?" "He is aware we are naked both and so close." "Why, you are paying me a fee. An especially big one since happiness punch doesn't work on you." I heard him whisper, "You think so?" But I'll never know for sure, since my heartbeat was louder in my ears than his voice. "What did you want me to do?" "I didn't know you were here." "I don't know." I could hear him walking away. I peeked again and saw him drying himself with the towel. He bent to grab his jeans and pulled it up before zipping it. He wore his red t-shirt, grabbed his towel and soap and immediately started to leave. That's when it hit me. "Luffy!" He stopped in his tracks and stood still. "I forgot my towel, and I lost my clothes. I can't get out of the water." He turned his head to the side and thought. He brought his hand on his eyes and stepped closer to the water. He threw his towel and I caught it, making my hands leave my boobs. He kept his eyes closed. "Thanks. And sorry for shouting at you." "You don't need to pay a fee." He smiled with one hand on his hip and the other one on his forehead and eyes, and he laughed. "You are funny, Nami." I accepted the compliment, although in normal conditions he would have deserved a deadly punch. I got out of the water and dried myself with his red towel. It was soap due to him drying before me, but still better than nothing. I noticed his manhood was poking the fabric of his shorts, and it kinda made me happy. He took his t-shirt off and handed it to me with his eyes still closed. I took it gracefully, muttering a thank you, and wore it. It reached before my thighs and looked kinda cute. Still risky without an underwear. "You can open your eyes." He slowly opened them and squeezed them to adjust to the sunlight. I looked at him, and then I saw his blush. This time I was sure about it. "How do I look?" "Gee, good. Thanks for the towel and the shirt." I didn't know if someone would pass through the forest to the river to ask them for clothes. "I thought you'd have gone for breakfast by now," and that's when he realized he missed breakfast. He sprinted to the coast, and I sweat dropped, following slowly behind him. Luffy, she was stunning. She was like those sirens that Usopp lied about. She was captivating. She was doing things to my body. I felt hot. Nami was not the first woman I've seen naked, not the first woman I've seen taking a bath. However, I couldn't get her perfect body out of my mind. Her hair dripping wet, sticking onto her shoulders and waist, her lips glistening from the rays of sunlight passing through the green leaves, her breasts were big and bouncy. Her hands were able to cover just her nipples. Her skin was smooth and creamy, her waist small and delicate. The rest of her was sank in the chilly water. I was eating my breakfast, but food was not enough to make me take my mind off of her. She was sitting across of me with my t-shirt still on, another thing that made me feel hot and happy at the same time. Her smooth legs were crossed as she sat at the bar drinking her smoothie and eating her egg sandwich. "Ah, where is that stupid Marimo again? Did he get lost? Breakfast is served. If he is late, I'm cleaning the kitchen, and no food for him till lunch," Sanji declared over the sink, cleaning his kitchen supplies. "Cook-san, can you make a bento for Zoro-san?" "I'll take it to him," Robin willingly said. No, Robin-chwan, you don't need to do all this for that green asshole." "I'll send another idiot to do that," he said, doing the noodle dance. "No, it's okay. I wanna walk anyways." "If you insist, my beauty," Nami got up and announced that she was going to do some yoga in the sand and emphasized for Sanji to not follow her. He complied and she left the kitchen. I went to take a nap at my favorite spot under the tree when I noticed Nami doing some yoga poses. She was sitting on a yoga mattress with her legs crossed, her palms on her knees and her eyes closed. Then she did another one which's name was my favorite, called Warrior, and did 3 styles of them on each side. She then lay down on her stomach with her torso arched backwards and her cans in front of her. Lastly, she did 2 more poses named Downwards Dog and Extended Puppy. I knew those names since Sanji was talking about how good Nami's but was looking in that position. In the first one she was on her feet and her palms on the ground while her body was sticking up in the air, like a triangle. I had a full view of her rear and something inside me felt uneasy. I adjusted in my seat and started some more. She then fell on her knees with but sticking up in a somewhat similar position. This pose was making me even more uncomfortable. I felt some pressure in between my legs but tired to ignore it. I closed my eyes ready to sleep but it was impossible. I couldn't forget her yoga poses and the pressure down there was unbearable. I felt my dick spasming and I got up. I went into the forest searching for a way to ease my mind and body. In the deep green, the first heard weird noises coming from the spot where we were training. I peeked through the bushes and noticed a camouflaged familiar swordsman doing something weird with a familiar archaeologist. She was naked from the waist down, and sitting on top of Zoro's hips bouncing herself while he was laying on the grass. Her shirt was over her boobs and Zoro's pants was down to his knees. Their eyes were shut closed tightly, and it looked like they were in deep pain. I was concerned but decided not to interfere. I left quickly concerned about my own problem and strolled in the path of dirt that was created by nature. I managed to get to the other side of the island, which was covered by beautiful big rocks with a super smooth surface. You could walk easily on them like it was marble, and it was kinda slippery. The sea was spreading in front of it, vast and shiny. This place was amazing and I couldn't wait to saw it to Nami. I don't know why I thought about Nami, though I was sure she'd like it. It was already noon and lunch would be served, so I decided to head back when I noticed that my dick was almost back to normal. If not back to normal, at least the discomfort was way more bearable than before. As soon as I reached the beach, I noticed that everyone was back. Zoro and Robin looked normal, and so I wasn't gonna discuss what I saw back there. My mouth watered at the big chunk of meat that was sitting in front of me. I looked at Sanji for permission since I didn't want to get my butt beaten, and he signaled me to eat. In 2 bites I gulped it down, leaving the bone, and then I grabbed another piece. Everyone was chatting loudly as usual. That's until Frankie said he had to announce to us something. My super brothers and sisters, the ship is finally super ready and tomorrow we can continue this super adventure we have started. Everyone was clapping and shouting excitedly, including myself. Let's have a banquet tonight. I shouted over everyone's voices and the cheering got louder. I noticed Nami laughing along and I smiled. I then turned my gaze at Zoro and Robin, and they looked excitedly at each other, with Robin almost blushing slightly. Sanji got up quietly but with a smile and headed to the kitchen to make preparations for tonight's party. A party to remember. Nami. Night had came around and we were celebrating on the beach the continuation of our dreams. We'd be sailing by tomorrow's dawn, or at least that's the plan. We were sitting in a circle around the bonfire. On my left was Robin and on my right Sanji-kun. We were dreaming, joking, laughing, eating and drinking beer while the sun was setting and the moon took its glory. Everybody had started getting tipsy from the booze Sanji had brought us, and Usopp's light-hearted joke echoed in my head. So, Luffy, have you ever kissed a girl? Oi, don't tease Luffy, bro. Supper not cool, said Frankie, sipping on his cola bottle. Probably the only one sober. Oh, come on, I really want to know what he was doing in his teens. Well, Luffy spoke up, making everybody shut up. I haven't. That answer was expected, but it still surprised me how Luffy knew what I was talking about. Usopp whispered to himself. Have you, Usopp-san? Robin inquired curiously, trying to return the awkwardness to Usopp. He blushed a few shades of red before actually answering. Why, yeah. I have. But only with Kaya. Then, like a thunder striking him, he spoke again. Of course, that includes her sisters and her mothers. Her grandma was kinda tough, but my great Riz got her too. She could not resist the pleasure of my nose. Usopp-san, I think we drunk enough. Yo-ho! Brook exclaimed cheerfully, covering his bloody nose, probably thinking about panties. Suga Usopp. Chopper couldn't help admiring his idol. Do you want to hear about the story of my body having sex with women on the beach? Yes. Please tell me. Chopper shouted. Sanji-kun sat close by to hear Usopp's stupid stories. He of course did not believe him, but I'd bet it was inspiration for his perverted thoughts. Frankie and Brook stayed close to hear as well, but Luffy, who sat next to Usopp, seemed uninterested. I turned my head to Robin, ignoring the lying idiot, and starting a conversation. It was past midnight. Everybody was silently sleeping inside the ship. I was feeling thirsty, so I got up and walked on the deck. I entered the kitchen, grabbed a glass of cold water, and chugged it down. Leaving the kitchen, I noticed a figure by the railing. His straw hat was tied around his neck. His hair was dancing along the wind's rhythm. His gaze was fixed on the vast dark sea. I shivered when a summer breeze blew and he turned around, noticing my presence. Nami? Are you up? Yeah. I needed some water. Is there any chance I can have the bridge's password? No. Are you going back to sleep? Is Robin sleeping there? I think she fell asleep in the library. Actually, do you want to come with me? There's something I want to show you. Okay, let me grab a jacket. I was nervous for what he was going to show me, but sleep was not an option as the excitement had built up inside me for tomorrow, making me unable to rest. While we were walking deep in the forest, I felt my heart beating rapidly. We were alone so late at night, and so far from the crew. My short and silky nightgown was waving with each movement. Luffy's body looked strong as I watched him following behind him. His upper body had gained a lot of muscles in those 2 years. I could see Arlong's bite marks on his ribs. It pained me and at the same time made me feel secure being next to him. He was strong and had proved it multiple times. We stopped at the end of the forest. I hadn't visited this place once since we got here. It looked marvelous. It had a stunning view of the full moon, and instead of sand, that beach was full of shiny, smooth, black rocks to walk on. It was one of the most beautiful places I'd ever been to. Wow! I muttered. I was positive that you'd like it, Luffy said with a wide grin. It's gorgeous. I know, right? We sat there on a smooth rock. The shine from the moon was our only light. I looked at Luffy and his expression seemed serious. What's up, Luffy? He snapped out of it before answering, oh, sorry, all's fine. Then why were you not sleeping? He looked at me ready to say something, but closed his mouth again like a fish out of the sea. I don't know, he said, lowering his hat to his eyes, and he seemed honest. Is there anything I can help you with? No. I mean, yes. I mean, I don't know, he said without looking at me but instead turning his gaze away. Just tell me. I may be able to help you. He looked at me nervously, and if I was honest, I think he blushed. So there's this thing that started since the night before yesterday. He started explaining. Yeah. He took a deep breath. It was the first time I'd ever seen him so awkward. He looked annoyed that I didn't react or said something. That's why I didn't want to tell you. Why did you not consult Chopper? Does it hurt bad? It actually hurts good. He whispered. I was contemplating his problem, but the more I thought about it, the more confused I was. What do you mean? He sighed before replying. That's why I should have talked to one of the guys. I blushed now, understanding his problem, but my stubbornness wouldn't let me fail to help him. Have you tried, oh my gosh, have you tried jerking off? I was on fire. I could not look at him in the eye after this conversation, that was for sure. Yeah. He answered casually. I got hot by imagining in the shower jerking off, dripping wet from sweat and water, his fist firmly on the wall while the other hand pumping up and down his shaft. His facial expressions. Him biting his lip, squeezing his eyes closed and finally reaching his climax. I had just made myself wet with the thought, but it was worth it. I never knew he could pleasure himself, but I guess I don't know everything about him. Has doing that helped at all? Yeah, temporary. How temporary? 4 minutes. So he was hard again after 10 minutes. Was he doing something wrong? I looked at him in shock and surpassed my fear of looking him in the eye after this conversation. He looked at me and blushed, then looked away again. Do you think I should see Chopper? If it's becoming a problem, I guess you should. He laughed, laying down on his back, bringing his hat on his face. Sorry for making it awkward. No, I'm sorry for making uncomfortable questions. I looked at his dick since I thought he couldn't look at me. It was indeed poking his zipper, and I could even see it spasming with each pump of blood in his heart. I really wanted to help him. I couldn't bear seeing him so distracted from his adventure and role of the captain. I was staring and staring, hoping my stare would cure his arousement. The longer I've stared, the more his dick was moving. I heard his breathing becoming faster and shallow, sometimes even shaking. I moved closer to his face and took off his hat and placed it next to him. He looked shocked, and then I realized how close I'd come to his face. Our lips were inches apart. I could feel his hot, quick breath on my face, and my own followed his pattern. I jumped back and he sat there frozen in place. I muttered an apology and sat back down on my spot. And Nami. I can't take it. You can't take what? He simply got up ready to leave. I got up as quickly as possible and caught his hand. Please don't touch me. He almost yelled, and then he lowered his voice. Please. I beg you. I can't take it anymore and don't want to do something I'll regret. I want to help you. He turned his head to the side and looked at me from the corner for his eye. You really don't have tea. I want to. I shouted, frustrated. He took a shaky breath and turned around. How are you gonna help me? I smiled genuinely. I hesitated but stepped forwards, making the space between non-existent. I'll show you, Nami. I'll show you, I said as my lips inched closer to his. I kissed him. Slowly and lovingly. I knew I had his first kiss. His lips were soft and firm. I felt him relax and he kissed me back. He sucked on my upper lip while I nibbled on his lower. I brought my hands around his neck, pulling him closer and sticking my body onto his. I could really feel the tension in his pants onto my lower belly. He grabbed my waist by crossing his hands behind my back, thus pulling me close and pressing my body firmly on his cock. He gasped, and his fists tightened on my nightgown's fabric. I kissed him again with more passion and aggression this time. He tapped my lips with his tongue. This got me by surprise, and I gasped, giving him the opportunity to slide his tongue in my mouth. He gently ran his tongue against my own, and then he twirled it with mine. That was the best kiss I've ever experienced. He for sure was a natural great kisser. My pussy had started to leak vaginal fluids. My body wanted him as much as his wanted me. However, I'd never in the past allowed any man to see this side of me. A few making out sessions with bartenders to give me informations for the next island were always enough to get me off the hook, back when I was searching for treasures. But even that had been long in the last, almost 3 years. At this point my body was screaming for him. I interrupted the kiss and grabbed his wrist. I dragged him to the nearest rock that was sticking out and pushed him down to sit. He looked at me with confused and horny eyes. A look I'd never seen on him. I fell on my knees between his legs. I gently touched his aching area and he jerked. I heard him take a sharp breath and then I continued. I unzipped his pants and motioned him to lift his butt so I can take down his pants. I did the same with his underwear, grabbing it carefully with my fingers and maneuvering over his dick and out of the way. I took a second to admire what was before me once again. The bright light was hitting it perfectly. It was thicker and longer from an average dick. It was crimson red and its veins were visible. The pubic hair were complementing it perfectly, reaching the base of his shaft. The tip was shining from the reflection of the moonlight on his pre-cum. It was twitching and moving painfully. I looked up at him and noticed he had turned his head away, feeling embarrassed, something I thought I'd never see in my life. I grabbed his dick with one hand and he jolted back, clenching his fists and jaw. He turned his head to me and looked me in the eye with those beautiful dark chocolate orbs of his. I moved my hand, stroking it slowly. He grabbed my hand in his and moved it in a quicker pace. He left my hand and I continued at his desired pace. His eyes were hooded and he let out a deep groan. I suddenly stopped all movement and he opened his eyes. Grabbing his cock firmly, I brought it towards my mouth. Luffy put his hands on my cheeks and stopped, me leaning my head upwards in the process. Nami, you really don't have to do this. I could see his was putting all his strength into stopping himself from the pleasure, and that was adorable. I will. Don't do it if you don't want to. But I want to. With that I got out of his hands and inserted his erection inside my mouth. I heard him grunt and moan. He laid back on his elbows, letting his head fall back. I was sucking and teasing with my tongue. I got out and licked from base to the tip, flicking it with my tongue, and then stuffed my mouth with it again. He made a loud groan coming from deep inside his neck. It was sexy and got me even more aroused. I unconsciously moved my hips with each stroke my lips were giving him. I sucked again, and that was it for him. He grabbed the back of my head with one hand and the other one was supporting his upper body. He moaned again and again, slumming my head with a little more force on his dick, before letting loads of semen pump out of his tool. They were like hot waves sitting on my tongue and burning it. He finally shuddered and fell back. I got up, sucking the rest of it and gulping it all down. When I realized I gulped it, I turned red. I never imagined I would ever do that, but I did it instinctively. He was panting heavily, and I laid down next to him, trying to catch my own breath. Once he calmed down, he turned to his side and locked eyes with me. That felt amazing. I'm glad you liked it. Have you done it before? That's a rude question. But no, I haven't. You're good at it. Thanks, I said, blushing crimson red. He then looked away and seemed ashamed. What's wrong? And nothing. Oh, come on. How much worse could it be? He didn't answer. I got on top of him, ready to tease him more to talk, but that's when I felt it. His dick was poking my underwear aroused from underneath my nightgown while I was sitting on his hips. He looked at me shocked, and I looked back with the same expression. I'm so sorry, he exclaimed before I said anything. I feel tired, but my body reacts on its own. I was lost of words. I didn't know what to say. The way it was aggressively pressing on my pussy made me wanting to continue where we left, and maybe further. I could see the guilty face Luffy was making, and I just tried to reassure him it was alright. It's fine, don't worry. We can take care of that, and no. I think it's better if you go to sleep. You seem tired too, Luffy. Do you really think I want to stop at this point? What do you mean? I looked away. I was scared to say this. What if he used me only to take what he needed and now he was sending me off to sleep? What if he didn't want to go all the way? What if he didn't care about how my body was aching for him? I really don't need to show my insecurities right now. This was not like me at all. Do you want to have sex? I asked, blushing madly. Sex? Yes, sex. Why, yeah. What is that? I sweat dropped. He knew how to pleasure himself. He knew that I gave him a blowjob, but he didn't know what sex was? I sighed. It's okay, forget it. I got off of him and grabbed my jacket to head back. Wait. Nami, what? Is sex a way to return the favor for making me feel so good? I turned and looked at him. It will make me feel good, I think. So you haven't tried it? I said, stop asking rude questions. Of course I haven't. Then, do you want to try it together? I blushed hard. This innocent question sent lightning jolts in my body. Sure, okay, show me what to do. I sat back down on his crotch, leaning over to kiss him. The kiss we shared was hot. He bit my lip, making me moan, and my hips jolted. He gasped and grabbed my waist. Is this sex? He asked between kisses. No. It's even better. I whispered seductively. He did a quick airy move and switched us places. He was now on top of me, and he pinned my wrists down on the rock. His hips thrusted onto mine, with the only piece of fabric between us being my underwear. He was hitting my clitoris with each thrust, making me moan. He stayed silent all this time, carefully and enthusiastically observing my reactions. I brought my palm around his dick, and he immediately broke his silence. He grunted deeply and he threw himself onto me, his face in my orange locks. You smell nice, he said between breaths and moans. I could not really focus on what he was saying. He buried his face in my neck, his hot breath sending chills down my body. He then kissed my neck and sucked it. My eyes shot open as the pleasure was real. I moaned loudly and he took it as a sign to continue. He bit and kissed and sucked, leaving red bruises on my neck, but I didn't care. He then stopped. I looked at him like he was crazy, but he seemed to be contemplating something. What should I do next? He asked, looking at me. I couldn't find the strength to answer, so I just grabbed his hand and placed it on my pussy over my undies. He got that message that he should concentrate on that part. He rubbed my lady parts, stroking them up and down. I grabbed his arm and guided him to do it in a circular motion. He got the message quickly again and followed my lead. I let go of his hand and he continued on my pace. I moaned loudly when one finger passed by my entrance, and he caught that. He moved those circles above my entrance, and I got crazy, and then he stopped again. I looked at him, and he just pointed at my underwear with his other hand grabbing the hem. I nodded and he carefully took them off. He got off his hands and knees getting down from the rock that was sticking up. He was now in between my legs and he spread them open staring at my wet glory. He looked fascinated by the view and I could feel his stare, as if he was touching me. Although confused and in need of directions, he decided to not ask again but explore the region on his own. He stroked my labia and slipped his middle finger in between. I groaned in pleasure, as he was searching for the spot. He passed by my clitoris, and I almost screamed. That's when he knew. He stroked in circles and I clenched my fist, turning my knuckles white. I moaned and groaned at each stroke, making my head go foggy. He then decided to go on an adventure downwards and into my entrance. Luffy! I screamed his name when he inserted 2 fingers inside me. He liked the look on my face and lowered his head over my stomach, giving kisses all the way, heading downwards. I knew where this was going and my vaginal walls clenched tightly. He took his fingers out, licking and cleaning them with his tongue. Tastes good, he mumbled under his breath, and kissed my hairless pubic region. He continued his way down to my clitoris and stuck out his tongue, leaving circles on my sensitive spot. I screamed. He brought his hand upwards and gently silenced my mouth with his palm so that I wouldn't wake anyone. He licked and sucked my blossom before moving to my entrance. He pressed his tongue hard inside it and waited. My body moved on its own and thrusted his tongue in and out. He pinned my hips down and grabbed my legs, placing them over his shoulders so that he could have better access. He stuck his tongue in my vagina and retrieved it fast, repeating the move. I was so close. I was whimpering. I wanted to reach my orgasm. He stopped. I looked at him. He was confused as to what to do next. I slided down to be on the edge of the rock and he looked puzzled. I reached down and grabbed his painfully in my palm. I pressed it in my entrance. Is this it? He asked carefully. Yes, that's, I managed to say, longing with desire and lust. He slowly inserted his erection inside me, leaning his upper body on mine. Halfway in I was tugging on his hair, trying to adjust to his size and the pain. The pain was mixed with pleasure when he slammed the rest of his dick inside me. My back arched, and he grunted, Nami. That's so good. Yes, it is. My vagina was milking his cock, shooting pleasure in his system. He was moaning uncontrollably, and so was I. Can I move? I can't take it any longer. Yeah, he pulled back and thrusted back and hitting the perfect spot and my clitoris with a grinding move. He picked up his pace, grabbing my hips and thrusting them towards him. I screamed and he growled. His head turned to my bouncing boobs. My nightgown was out of the way and they were rival to him. He put his tongue on my sensitive and hard nipple and he licked, twirling his tongue around it. He grabbed my other breast and pinched the other nipple, sending waves of ecstasy in my being. He was a beast. He was hard and unstoppable. His hips were on fire, and his tongue was burning my skin. He reached down to my clitoris and continued the circles with his finger where he had left them. That was my sensitive spot. My vision went black. My body was thrusting against his own and I finished with him inside me. My walls were tightening his shaft and spasming around him. I've had my orgasm and he was panting and pounding my insides. Nami, Luffy, Polo. Before I could finish my sentence, his hot substance filled my uterus. I swallowed in fear of what might happen next, but I let him enjoy the moment, since I can't change what has been done. He laid heavy onto me, his dick still inside me. We hugged tightly as we were panting heavily on the smooth, rocky beach. The sun was about to rise. I faced him and kissed him. We shared a romantic and slow kiss, caring about nothing in the world other than each other. I love you. I was stunned by his words. My breath got caught in my throat, and I stared at him until I realized I did too. I love you too, Luffy. The ship had sailed successfully. Frankie was the best of his kind, plus he was a super cool guy. The weather was windy and chilly since we were entering a region with autumn season. The sky was cloudy and dark. Nami said there was a huge possibility to rain. I was sitting on top of Sunny's head watching the sunset, trying to peek through the thick watery clouds until the sun completely sank into the deep black sea. Sanji shouted that dinner was ready. I shot up and rocketed myself into the kitchen. For dinner he made my favorite meat on the bone, some salad for Nami and Robin, onigiri and spring rolls alongside with seafood pasta and grilled octopus which Usopp and Chopper had caught. So guys, who's on watch today? Nami asked. Zoro raised his sake bottle like raising a hand to her question. Okay, Zoro then. We didn't really need to be on watch anymore. Hardly anyone would risk his life to fight against us, so Zoro was the main night guardian of the ship, although we knew he was most likely sleeping. I watched as Nami put the fork in her mouth, continuing with her food. The lettuce stumbled upon her lips, covering them in white mayonnaise sauce. I grabbed a napkin and offered it to her. She blinked at my gesture and accepted it, gracefully blushing as her hand touched mine. We told no one about last night. The decision was made to not repeat it again, but those feelings we had on each other were not a secret anymore. We laid there exhausted, hugging each other, and there were passionate kisses involved too. But that was it. No more affection, we agreed on that. Nami's crossed leg accidentally touched my inner thigh and I froze halfway through my bite. Usopp noticed and looked at me concerned. You okay, Luffy? You seemed kinda red and you've stopped eating. What's wrong? Yeah. I'm fine, I said as I dived into the meat again. I took a look at Nami. She was blushing vibrant red and looked shocked. That made me not to question whether she did this on purpose. The meal had ended and we were all stuffed. After drinking some tea, everyone said their goodnights and headed to bed. Captain San Robin caught my attention. I'll be helping Zoro with watch since I don't really sleep anyways. Is that alright? As sure, my thoughts went back to what happened in the forest. Realization had hit me about what had been going on between the two. Robin smiled and climbed up the ladder to the watch-out room / Zoro's gym, after him. I sat there on the green grass searching for stars in the sky to no avail. Cold and thick droplets landed on my face, getting heavier and heavier, and before I got the chance to get up, my clothes and hair were already drenched from the sudden thunderstorm. A door opened and Nami popped her head out. Luffy, can you come in for a second? Why, yeah. I said, startled, and rushed in her room, dripping wet to avoid the thunderstorm. What were you doing out there, Luffy? You'll catch a cold. Yeah, that was sudden. Anyway, I wanted to say sorry for what had happened in the kitchen. I didn't mean to do that. Don't worry, I know. My dick wanted her body again and again, but I had it under control. It hurt knowing that we were alone in her room and she was wearing such a mini skirt. The blue on its color complemented perfectly her milky white complexion, and her white ruffled off the shoulders top made her seem like an angel. Her wavy orange hair was flowing on her back and the white thin bow on her head made a beautiful contrast. Thank you, she said before taking off her high heels. After she set them aside, she looked at me. I'm getting ready for bed, you should too, she claimed, and pushed me gently on the back. The sound of a strong thunder ripping the clouds apart echoed on the ship and rocked it a little bit. Nami lost her balance and landed on my chest, with me landing on the door and my back pressing against it. She looked up and her cheeks took the color of the sunset. She took her hands off my chest slowly and went over to a drawer. She pulled out a medium-sized towel and brought it over to me. Dry yourself first and get out when the storm calms down. I took the towel and rubbed it on my head, trying to get the moisture off my hair. Take your clothes off too. No, I'm okay, I said. Take your clothes off. I sweat dropped. Oh, okay, I took off my shirt and then my pants while Nami was still looking at me. More precisely, she was trying to look and at the same time avoid staring at my body. I took off my pants and I was sure she saw the bulge on my private parts because her whole face turned red. I tried covering myself and realized my underwear was also soaked in rainwater, or so I thought. I took them off and wrapped the towel around me. Nami didn't see that as she was staring at the window and into the sea. Done, I said as soon as I wrapped myself with the fabric. Okay, I'll change into my nightwear. Don't look, she warned me and turned around. That's not fair, Nami. You were watching me undress. She looked offended and gasped. That's not what I was doing. I was just making sure you were doing it correctly, and also it's not the same. Yes, it is. I mumbled under my breath and received a death glare. She turned her back to me and took off her blouse. Did you know that Zoro and Robin were having sex? I said, looking at her figure. What? She screamed and turned back to me. I was struggling not to look at her perfectly shaped breasts from inside her bra. They were pushed upwards and into two beautiful round spheres. Shhhh, I shushed her, bringing one finger onto my mouth. Why would you say that? I saw them. When? Where? How? Yesterday afternoon, at the forest. Robin on top of Zoro. She blushed and held her cheeks and then hid her face with her hands. Too much info, you idiot. Sorry. Well, that's good for them. If it makes them happy, she continued, turning her back to me again and taking her bra off, leaving red marks on her smooth skin. You mean, what happened yesterday didn't make you happy enough for us to continue? She froze. She seemed to be searching for words. I got up and walked behind her, letting the towel drop to the floor. Luffy. I let the towel fall on the hard wooden floor. Nami heard the creaking under my steps and knew I was close to her. She inhaled sharply. My body was pressed against hers and my arms wrapped around her waist. I buried my face in her soft hair and kissed her neck. I felt her shuddering in my arms, still not letting go of her breath. I moved my hand on her tit and squeezed it. Luff, Nami said, turning her head to meet mine, and I silenced her with a kiss. Grabbing her other breast as well, I teased them with my thumbs and pinched them. She let a beautiful moan into my mouth, and I felt it vibrating into my whole body. I pulled my hand away from her tits and thrusted my upper body onto hers, pinning her between me and the wall. Said wall was probably too cold since she was hit by a shock wave. I felt my erection at its peak, wanting to fuck her right there and then, but I held back as much as I could. Kissing between her shoulder blades, she arched her back and I slided a finger beneath her skirt and underwear. Her hot lips were covered in moisture, and I gently pressed on her favorite spot. She was about to scream, and I covered her mouth with my hand. Luffy, she said, whispered while panting. See, can we, at least, lock the door? No one will come. My voice sounded deep and hoarse. The thunderstorm wouldn't be coming anytime soon. I took my fingers off and she whined quietly. I placed my wet fingers on her lips, waiting for her to open her mouth and taste her delicious juice, and she did. She played with my fingers in her mouth, sucking, licking, and even pumping her head up and down, resembling the blowjob she had given me yesterday. My fist tightened on the wall as my dick was now under her skirt and my hips were unconsciously rubbing it on her clothes, but I grabbed the sides of her hips, pulling them back while her torso was still stuck on the wall. I gave her but a loud slap, getting a loud moan from her. I pulled up her skirt and put my hand inside her panties, giving her firm as a hard squeeze. My fingers slided from in between her butt cheeks into her vagina. I watched as her eyes shot open wide. She then closed them tightly and placed her palms onto the wall agape. I slammed my fingers in and out with a steady pace, and she groaned uncontrollably. I kissed her neck and back until her body started jerking up towards my fingers. My dick was pleading for attention, but now it was Nami's time of enjoyment, so I put all my strength into controlling my instincts. I pulled my fingers out, licking and sucking them clean. Her legs trembled at the loss of fulfillment, and she was panting hard, grabbing onto the wall for dear life. I hugged her hips and lifted her up, making her lay down on her bed. I turned off the ceiling light, the only one now coming from the candle on her nightstand. I went on top of her on my knees and kissed her mouth. She hesitated but then relaxed to the kiss, wanting more and more. I slipped my tongue inside her mouth, teasing her own tongue. I tasted oranges and lettuce salad along with her juices. I couldn't stop tasting her. A grunt escaped my mouth as she battled her way into my own mouth now. She was exploring every corner of it before leaving with a suck on my tongue. I broke the kiss and kissed her neck. I sucked, and she clenched my hair with her fist while her other hand had nails digging in my skin. Luffy, she moaned as quietly as possible. I left the spot and moved on to her breast, taking a nipple into my wet mouth. She groaned with her hand pressing my head onto her tit, a silent beg to fulfill her desires. I sucked hard and licked while my other hand moved to her mouth. I placed my thumb and index inside it, getting them wet on her tongue, and then pinched her sensitive nipple. She arched her back, her hands now grabbing the sheets, wrinkling them. I lightly bite on her nip, and then moved downwards. I placed open kisses on her stomach, and as I moved to her pubic area, she squeezed her legs hard. I pulled up her skirt and pulled down her pink panties. I grabbed her thighs and tried to open her legs, but she was not budging. I used more force and opened them, admiring once again her glory. Her pussy was shaved perfectly, leaving only smooth skin behind. Her vulva was glowing from the thick moisture, and her labias were looking welcoming. I reached my mouth down and kissed her blossom. She grabbed a pillow and placed it over her head, covering her screams. I grabbed the back of each of her knees and thighs and pushed them towards her torso, getting a better view. I licked rapidly her lips and moved on her sensitive spot, tracing circles like she had showed me. I sucked hard on it, and she gave off another scream. I then moved to her entrance and licked her insides. Luffy. More. Don't stop. She was on edge and my cock was spasming vigorously. I felt pre-cum pumping out and running down my length. Her hands were grabbing my hair, now pressing my face to her pussy on a steady pace. I grabbed her wrists and held them in place. I then moved upwards, trapping her shoulders between my knees and her body. She was looking at me surprised with her big puppy eyes, and I knew what I wanted. With my left hand I grabbed the behind of her head, and with my right one I grabbed my dick. I pumped up and down quickly, and I let out a groan as she was watching me engage in a solo erotic act. Her eyes were filled with lust. I placed my dick in her mouth's entrance, and she opened it, accepting it. My world went blank. I squeezed my eyes close as I felt her hot and slippery tongue wrapped around my shaft. She was licking and sucking hard, and I slammed it halfway in, as far as she could take it. I thrusted her head upwards and my hips towards her face. I was so close, but not letting it go yet. I lifted my knee, freeing one arm of hers, placing it on the base of my dick. She instead went even more down, grabbing gently my balls, massaging them with the tip of her fingers. I felt another pump of pre-cum exiting, and I slammed my hips hard with a loud growl. She coughed and gagged, and I stopped, backing away. "Sorry, Nami!" I exclaimed, panicked that I might have hurt her. She then got on her knees and kissed me sweetly. I could taste my bitter cum on her saliva. Nami then hooked her leg around me, switching us places. She sat on my hips, her wet pussy pressed on my erection. She moved those hips a few times, making my cock wet with her juice, and then lifting herself up, she grabbed it. She lowered herself back down and slammed it into her, hitting her wall with one movement. I threw my head back, and she did so too with her body. Her skirt was covering out intimate area, and it turned me on even more since it left things for the imagination. She jerked up and down and in circular motion, making my head go crazy. Her breasts were moving with each pump. The curiosity got the best of me, and I lifted her skirt. I could see the small V of her labia sucking my cock, which was now shining redder from the heat of my blood. She had started slow, but was now pounding hard onto me. I grabbed her hips tightly, leaving red marks. Her hands were around my knees. She was moaning hard, and I was grunting as her pussy was draining my life through my dick. Her movements became quicker unconsciously, and her breathing shallow and faster. Her eyes shut tightly and her mouth agape. She groaned in pleasure as the wave of fulfillment hit her system. Her orgasm was intense and long. Her walls were spasming violently, trying to get my cum to shoot out. I grabbed the sheets as I felt something building up. My balls were tightening and my jaw had clenched. Nami acted quickly and pulled me out of herself. Sitting on my stomach with her back facing me, she replaced her vagina with her oral cavity. I couldn't hold it any longer and shoot right into her throat. She was coughing and gagging. I brought my hand up, rubbed her back, and she turned around before laying next to me. "You're panting so hard," she said, smiling. "Like you are better," I replied, smirking. She punched me playfully and pouted. "We'd said no more sex," she whined. "Yeah. Sorry, I can't control myself near you." She blushed a dark shade of tomato and looked away. "How will it go from now on?" "I don't know. But I really like what we have right now." "I do too, Nami." I woke up from a nightmare. Luffy had died in the middle of a fight against Blackbeard. I was sweating and panting heavily. My eyes and hands searched for my water bottle on the nightstand. My body felt tired. 2 weeks had passed, and we were having intimacy with every opportunity. We've even done it when we were asked by Frankie to check out the new update on his new docking system under the ship's surface. I got up and my eyes were blurry. Slowly and steadily, I headed to the bathroom to do my business until a sudden wave of nausea came to me. I rushed to the bathroom and someone was already inside, but I ignored them and emptied my already void stomach into the toilet. I felt a hand grab my hair so that they were not in the way of my vomit, and another one stroking my back. I was breathing heavily over the toilet bowl, and when I felt my muscles relax, I turned to the figure. Luffy was kneeling next to me. His pants were unzipped, meaning I probably interrupted his morning pee. Two dark brown orbs were looking at me concerned and worried. I stood up and walked towards the sink to wash up. You okay, Nami? Yeah, maybe something I've eaten, I whispered, embarrassed. I don't think Sanji would make something badly. Why don't you visit Chopper? No, it's okay, I'm just gonna rest a little. He walked up to me and hugged me from behind. His head was rested on top of mine as I was washing my hands, and he was staring at the mirror. I'm concerned. I know. Sorry for interrupting your peeing and thanks for the help. How did you know I peed? You forgot to zip your pants. Shit, he let go of me and zipped his pants. Anyway, do you want to see what's for breakfast? No, I'm not really hungry. I thought about food and felt another wave of nausea coming. I turned to the toilet again, throwing whatever was left from yesterday's spaghetti. Luffy kneeled down again and stroked my hair away from my face. He was whispering it's alright as my system was cleaning itself from inside out. I got up and saw his facial expression. He looked mad. What's Ro? You are going to Chopper? No, I don't need to. He grabbed me and threw me over his shoulder like a sack. He was walking towards the infirmary, and I was punching and kicking my way out of his lock. Chopper! He shouted for the fluffy reindeer, and he come out of the kitchen running. His little feet were following the captain into the room where he placed me sitting down on the infirmary bed. I'm okay. No! He looked angry and helpless. I could feel his worry and it pained me too. What's wrong? Chopper inquired curiously. She threw up. Twice. Luffy blurted out. It's not a big deal. I added, okay, let me check. Our doctor took a blood sample. He checked my vitals and he took my blood pressure. Blood pressure is a little bit high, but that's okay. I'll do a blood analysis and then I'll know. There's a huge possibility it's nothing important. Luffy was smiling relieved, and I couldn't help but smile and blush at his kind-heartedness. We had our breakfast. Sanji was informed about the possibility that I threw up because of his food and was sulking in the corner. Despite that, he had made me a vegetable soup to hydrate me and a smoothie. What's wrong with you, Arrow Cook? You can't take a bad review about your mistake for cooking? Zoro teased him, smirking. Shut up, Moss Head. I've made my precious Nami-san sick. My pride can't take it. I'll throw away all the food, but don't waste that. Usopp commented. Don't worry. I mean that I will feed it to you shitheads. Hey! Usopp shouted and Luddy started laughing. It's still good, he said, grinning. When I finished, I excused myself and went to bed. I laid down and covered myself with the blanket. The door busted open and Luffy walked inside. Why are you entering like that? Knock the door first. Sorry. He walked to my bed and sat on the edge staring at me. I closed my eyes and sighed. Do you need something? Are you really sick? No, I'm fine now, just a little tired. Have you never been sick? No. What kind of monster are you? I whispered. He was still staring unbothered. I heard a faint knock on the door. Hello? I said, and the voice of the little reindeer came through the door. Nami, can I come in? Yes. Came in. Chopper walked up next to me before looking at Luffy. Luffy, can you leave us alone for a moment, please? He asked politely our captain. Is it about her health? Yes. Then no. I'm not leaving. It's personal, just give us a moment. No! He shouted and I sighed. I was too tired to deal with him right now. Let him be. Chopper. Are you sure? Yes. He's the captain after all. I turned and looked at Luddy, who nodded. His face was harsh and serious. Okay. Nami, are you sexually active? My face was caught on fire. I looked at Luffy and he could not hide a faint blush either. His ears were as red as the ribbon on his hat. Why, yes. Chopper looked collected and professional. Nami, you are pregnant. Time stopped. I went numb. I could not blink, could not move, could not breathe. His words were echoing in my mind. How could this happen? I've been careful. We've been careful. I made sure Luffy always pulled out. And then it hit me. The first time. It was more than 2 weeks ago when we went all the way. When I didn't manage to prevent him from finishing inside me. Just this once. And I was pregnant? With his child. I felt 2 eyes nailed on me. I snapped out of my trace of thoughts and looked back. Luffy was just as frozen as me, meaning he knew what Chopper was talking about. I searched for the doctor with my eyes but found him nowhere in my room. Luffy looked away. Chopper left. He said to visit him after the sock passes and that he was not informing anybody else unless you want to. He also said that whether you want to keep the fetus or not was up to you. Luffy. Do you understand what has happened? Yes. If I go on with the pregnancy, you'll never fulfill your dream, and neither will I or anyone on this ship. I know. I'm gonna end this pregnancy. I said, determined, and he looked at me shocked. You can't do that? That's our child. You can't do this. I can. I can and I will. I'm not gonna put an end to everyone's dreams just because we decided to have fun one night. That's so egoistic. Nami! Please don't decide immediately. Think through the options. We'll find a way. Please. And if you decide after all that that's what you want, then go ahead. But please think about it first, and don't be irrational. He grabbed my hand. He was in pain and shocked. I could feel his hand shaking uncontrollably. His jaw was clenched tightly. I even saw tears forming in his eyes. All right. I'll think about it, I said, and he nodded and got up, probably heading for Sunny's head. I rubbed my belly. I was having the child of the future pirate king, Luffy. 2 days had passed since learning the news. 2 days and Nami hadn't given a straight answer as to if she was keeping the baby or not. 2 days I was in agony. I felt like I was going to faint. Never had I ever felt like this before. I loved her. I knew what love meant, but with her I know exactly what it feels like. I couldn't imagine any other woman in her position, in my heart. Chopper's news hit me hard. I was shocked, happy, worried, but most importantly stressed out, and I could tell Nami shared some of those feelings, especially the last one. She was deep in thoughts, and the crew had started catching up that something was going on. I could see her contemplating the dilemma, and my heart ached. I wanted this baby. I really did. I was gonna be there for everything, everyone would. However, she understandably feared risking everybody's dreams for a moment of pleasure, as she stated it. I was trying my hardest not to force anything on her. It was her decision after all, but I really needed to talk to her, to express my feelings, and today was the day. She had told me to meet her up in the aquarium today after lunch. Robin certainly knew that Nami was pregnant. She was helping her in the nights when she couldn't sleep and in the morning when her sickness and nausea arrived. Despite that, she didn't talk to anybody else. I could tell from the sympathy in her eyes that she knew about me being the father too. Maybe Nami had told her in a moment of despair or whispered it in her sleep. Still, Robin was a solid rock to lean on if needed, and she always stated that with her pat on my back. Lunch was hard. I didn't feel like eating. That seemed to caught everyone's attention. No one dared to talk about it. The fact that Chopper didn't ask if I was feeling sick made it even more suspicious. I tried laughing at Usopp's stories, but it was difficult. My mind could only think about Nami. Sanji cursed under his breath for wasting food but knew better than to throw it away, thus he stored it in the fridge in case I was hangry later. I walked out of the kitchen shortly after Nami did. The anticipation that was built up inside me made me feel lightheaded. I walked down the stairs and went into the aquarium. Nami was sitting on one armchair facing the huge variety of fish before her. The waves of the blue water reflected into the room and on her beautiful face, tinting it lightly as she stated, unfocused. She was sitting cross-legged and her right hand was resting on her still flat stomach. Her orange soft hair were pulled back into a cute low braid. I watched as her mesmerizing honey eyes followed a big and a smaller yellow fish swimming from side to side. A smile was formed on her lips. I lightly knocked on the door so that I wouldn't startle her. She looked back and noticed my presence. Her left arm was raised and she waved at me. I waved back, grinning, and sat next to her. Sorry for making you wait, Luffy. It's fine. A moment of awkward silence followed. Chopper said that it was funny how I got pregnant so easily. The chances were low but not zero. Still, I got pregnant on our first night when you showed me the beach on the last island. I nodded as I relaxed on my armchair and my eyes started playing along with the fish. My attention was still fully on her words. Chopper told me the baby was fine. She took a deep breath. I want to grow a family with you, but if that meant destroying everyone's ambition, then I don't think it's necessary. So, I decided to put an end to it while it's still early. I turned my head, staring at her shocked. I didn't terminate the pregnancy yet, she said, realizing my thought process, sighed relieved. I wouldn't stop her if that's what she wanted. But it's not. She didn't want to end it. She was doing it selflessly for everyone else. Nami, my voice was rough and dry. I don't think you should end it. It's your decision in the end of the day, but you said you wanted to start a family with me. I want to. Everyone will be happy to hear the news. Except Sanji, I guess. No, they won't. How am I gonna give birth, Luffy? Where? What's gonna happen if we get in a fight? I'm gonna be a target for every bad guy going after you. I don't want to. We're also gonna have to take a break from our journey. How's this child gonna grow up? Where? On a pirate ship? That's dangerous, Luffy. I don't want to put my life, or my child's, or yours, or anyone else's in danger because of a stupid mistake. Her anger was boiling up. Those last words hurt me, and she realized it. I'm sorry, it was not a mistake, I whispered, feeling my own anger rising up. We may have not planned our lives to go that way, but it was not a mistake. I can protect you, and our child, and everyone. I'll give my life if needed. I thought you trusted me. I want that child, and I'll be there for everything. I'll give you everything, but please don't do it. I fucking love you, Nami. With that, I got up and left. She was crying, she was taking sharp little shaky breaths, whimpering quietly, and I felt my own tears escape my eyes. I went into men's quarters and laid down on my bed. I cried and cried, letting whimper after whimper escape my lips. My pillow was soaked in salty tears and my eyes ached. My throat was dry and in throbbing pain. A firm knock was heard on the door. I dried my tears and flipped my pillow before clearing my throat. Yes? The door opened and my first mate got in, his sharp eye analyzing the situation. He walked up to me and climbed up on the bed opposite of mine, which belonged to him. Is there anything you wanna say? Despite his rude ways, I could feel the concern on his gaze. I guess. Zoro, if Robin was pregnant, what would you do? Zoro's color drained from his skin, leaving a pale green complexion behind, matching his grass-like hair. He started choking on his own saliva and he patted himself on the chest with his fist. She's not, just asking. Why would I care about this woman? It's none of my concern. I know about you and Robin. Just answer my question. His eyes grew big and after a moment he calmed down. I guess it wouldn't be a secret for long, he sighed. I don't know. I would protect them with my life, and I would ask you if there was a possibility I could still stay on the crew with her and the baby. If you denied it, I'd probably stay with her on the next island trying to raise that child. I nodded in appreciation. Why do you ask though, Zoro? Promise you won't get mad at me. He glared at me with all seriousness, probably guessing what I was going to say next. I got Nami pregnant, and she wants to terminate the pregnancy. He stared shocked at the news, even though he had probably guessed it. However, it was a shock to cross-check his thoughts with my words. We are gonna be by your side, no matter what decision you make. He knew there were no better words to comfort me. He reached out and put a hand on my shoulder. I knew Sanji was outside listening. I could feel his presence and smell his cigarettes. He had probably lit more than while leaning on the wall, spying on our conversation. Zoro got up and left, leaving me behind to rest. I slept and dreamed. I saw a nightmare, where Akainu and Fujitora came on marine ships followed by Kizaru close behind. Nami was holding our daughter in her arms, soothing her cries while their cannons shoot. They were penetrating Sunny and everyone on board was screaming. Zoro and Sanji were fighting back as I was hugging Nami and our child to protect them. I couldn't fight. My crew members started falling on the ground dead, one after another, and I couldn't help them. I couldn't protect them. I couldn't save them. Their heads turned to me and they talked in one breath. It's your fault. I shot up, dripping in sweat and panting. My temperature felt hot and rising. I got up, desperate to breathe some fresh air. I got outside and gripped on the railing, the cold breeze hitting my face, the door creaking behind me, and I realized it was belonging to the infirmary. I turned around and came face to face with Nami, who was exiting the room with a sad and guilty look on her face. Our eyes met, and she quickly turned away, almost running in her room. I felt my fist clenching unconsciously. My teeth were grinding and my jaw tightened. She did it. It was over. She did it. My mind went blank. I could see Zoro opening one eye from the opposite side of the deck. I broke down. I fell on my knees. There was nothing I could do. I was helpless. Nami, I felt guilt, I felt rage. How could I do this? This poor baby didn't deserve it. It didn't deserve me as its mother. I felt cold. Empty. I wanted Luffy by my side when I went in Chopper's office. I couldn't look at him in the eye now. He was filled with anger. His look was intimidating. Did he know? When I had gone in the infirmary, Chopper told me that everything was all right. That I didn't need to worry. He said that my heartbeat was a mess, probably because of the stress, and that it could risk my pregnancy, and here I was continuing to stress, making it worse. I had gone to Chopper to talk to him about my plan to abort. He explained to me the complications of the procedure and checked on my vitals. The procedure couldn't be done now. My heartbeat was unstable, and it was dangerous for my life. Chopper suggested to come back tomorrow if I still wanted to go on with it. He emphasized that him and the rest of the crew would be by my side, whatever my decision was. At that moment I realized that they really would support us. If they had learned that the reason I wasn't pregnant anymore was because of them, they would be disappointed, sad, and left feeling guilty. I touched my belly as I relaxed on my bed. I wanted this baby. I wanted him. I hadn't really thought about the way he felt. Luffy was struggling as much as I did, and I was ignoring that. He was not as immature as I thought. Luffy had grown, and I had grown to love him. I needed him by my side. I needed him now. I bursted open the door to my room. I searched the ship from the men's quarters to the bathroom. I searched everywhere. Sanji-kun walked past me. His cigarette lightened in between his lips. Nami-san, he said calmly, not bombarding me with his usual flirty comments. I think what you're looking for is in there. He pointed at the kitchen. I entered the vast room and faced Luffy lounging on the sofa, his eyes shadowed by his straw hat. A tray with Sanji's delicious leftovers placed untouched on the table. I walked next to him and kneeled beside him, sitting on my heels. Luffy, please, don't talk to me. His voice was almost lost. He had no emotion. I could tell he had been crying for hours. I wanted tea. Please, Nami. Get out. He raised his voice and it cracked. He was in pain. But I was stubborn. I got up and sat on the bar stool, my back facing him. I felt awful. Tears were steaming down my cheeks. How could I hurt him? He was always there for me, and now I was betraying him. I was about to throw away the most precious product of our love and do it without him present. I was already attached to this child, a creation blooming from our love. I cried. The room was cold and silent, except from our shaky breaths and sobs. We were both crying silently in the distant comfort of each other. I felt the cold of the night penetrating my skin. I shivered. The floor behind me creaked, and Luffy wrapped his hands around me, sighing, to warm me up. I touched his hand and brought it to my face as I turned my sit around. I got up, grabbing his hand, pulling him to sit next to me on the couch. How do you feel? He asked, whipping my cheeks with his thumbs. I've seen better days, but now a little bit better. I'm so sorry, Nami. I was selfish. I wanted you to have this baby without thinking about your concerns. I thought I was ready to have a family, but I wasn't unless you were. I can't start a family with anyone else but you. Letting go of the baby was your decision, although I wanted to be by your side when you were having the procedure. I looked puzzled. What procedure? You know. The abortion. He whispered. I didn't do it. He looked shocked. His mouth agape and his eyes bigger than usual. The corners of his mouth turned slightly upwards in an unsuccessful way to form a smile. His eyes then shut close. A single tear rolled down his cheek as he was grabbing my arms. His head lowered as a single sob escaped his lips. I hugged him, burying my face in his chest. His hand covered his eyes as more sobs could be heard. I was tearing up, smiling. He was feeling relieved. His muscles relaxed. I laid on top of him as he lay back on the couch. I'm so sorry, Luffy. I was not considerate of your feelings. I feel so bad. I had gone in there to do the procedure, but my heartbeat was unstable. That's why I got away with it. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be pregnant right now, and I'd be regretting it for the rest of my life. I'm so sorry I hurt you. Luffy didn't care about my apologies. He never once held a grudge against me. He was just happy to be next to me. Next to us. He was hugging me like his life depended on it. Smiling. Like his old self. He placed his wet lips onto mine. I tasted salt and relief. He was kissing me lovingly, stroking my hair and pulling me close. I was hugging him, afraid he might let go, my fist wrinkling his red shirt. The door bursted open and Usopp and Frankie entered the room, catching us on the act. SSS sorry. Usopp exclaimed before running away, panicking. Frankie raised his thumbs up before shouting, way to go, brother, and then walking away. I blushed, embarrassed at the commotion. Luffy laughed loudly before kissing my cheek. He pulled me down, now laying on my back on top of him. He placed his hand on my stomach and drifted off to sleep. Dreaming about the future. Luffy. I woke up by the loud sound my stomach was making. The vibrations of the rumbling woke the sleeping beauty in my arms. She moved and pressed herself to my side. My senses awakened one after another, and my nose sniffed thin air until the scent of meat reached my nostrils. I opened my eyes to be greeted by the cook of my crew chopping vegetables, his back facing us. Sanji, I whispered, scared for my life. He looked back and smiled. Do you need anything, shitty captain? Are you not going to hit me? He leaned on the counter. No. Firstly, because you have a beautiful lady sleeping in your arms. And also because I know everything. It's gone too far for me to try and stop it. Congratulations, shitty captain, he said, turning his back away from me again. I smiled. I knew they'd be okay with it. Nami rubbed her eyes, looking around. She kissed my lips briefly, before spotting Sanji. Sanji-kun! She screamed, embarrassed. Yeez, Nami swayin', he said, cooing around us. Please don't hit Luffy. Don't worry, Nami-san, he said before lighting a cigarette. Now, please eat, Nami swayin'. He brought a tray with food before her. Chopper recommended the diet. You know, I'm pretty sure everyone does by now. I'll be here for everything you need, Nami swayin'. And with that he turned off the stove and headed outside. We could hear him say, dinner is ready, you shitty heads. And then running away screaming, Robin Chuan. Nami smiled and hugged me. She was happy. After eating dinner, me and Nami headed to Chopper's infirmary to check on Nami's pulse again. All's good, he exclaimed happily. So, what's your final decision? He asked curiously. We'll be keeping the baby, Nami said, smiling from ear to ear. Chopper then teared up and ran in her arms. I was hopping to hear they, Nami. I really didn't want to do this procedure, I know. She soothed him with hugs and pets. Chopper got up and left, moving his feet happily on the way. Nami, yes, I think I have something to say. What is it? She asked, confused. I took a big breath and flashed my biggest smile. Do you want to be my girlfriend? She was not expecting that. You didn't have to ask me, she said, smiling. Of course I do. I hugged her tightly and filled my nose with her scent. She stroked my raven hair and closed her eyes. Foo-foo, Captain. I think this calls for a party, Robin said, opening the door, obviously eavesdropping. Yes, I said, standing up and running outside before yelling, guys, we have a party. Everybody was smiling and cheering. Nami walked up to me and held my hand, making circles on the back of my palm. I hugged her on my side and kissed her temple. In case you didn't know, although I doubt that, me and Nami would like to announce to you that we are together. Everyone was smiling kindly to us. And we are expecting a child. Clapping echoed on the night sky as cheers filled the atmosphere. We just wanted to make sure if everyone had a problem with it. Nami asked, concerned. However, even Brooke's face showed that it was more than absolutely okay for us to become a bigger family. Nami's sis Frankie came in front of us and opened a blueprint. Captain, this is my gift for you. The blueprint was that of the ship. Except I noticed an extra room. It was written as Captain's bedroom with Frankie's handwriting. Nami's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm and she hugged the cyborg, or at least tried to. I sat there eyeing the map, my head tilted to the side and hands crossed. I tried super hard to find a secret meaning of this room but couldn't. Nami looked at me and laughed hysterically. What's so funny? I don't get it. Everybody laughed along and I just smiled. The party had almost come to an end and Nami tagged my sleeve. I looked at her and she signed to me to follow her. I did so and got in her and Robin's room before closing the door behind me. Robin said she will be sleeping with Zoro tonight, she said, smiling slyly. I see, I said, putting my fist in my palm. You don't want to sleep alone. Yes, she said as we sat on her bed. I sat there facing her with my legs crossed, and she did the same. She undone her legs and curled them around me over my thighs. I did so too and curled my feet behind her. She reached up and kissed me. It began as a caring kiss but soon turned passionate. She put her hand on my jawline, caressing my cheek, and I opened my mouth to let her tongue slide in. I felt complete and excited with her in my arms. She crawled closer so that her hot parts touched my private ones. She grinding, getting from me a sharp breath. I felt her lips forming a smile on mine. I pulled away, and Nami, I can't, I felt my body hot and needy. She looked at me sad. Why? She had those puppy eyes on and her lips, which were plump from kissing, pouted. I won't be able to stop if we continue. Then don't, she whispered seductively next to my ear. My breath got caught in my throat. My throbbing erection felt uncomfortable in my pants. Her hand moved to its aid, but I was quick enough to grab her wrist before it made contact. What's wrong? She whined. We can't have sex. Why? Because it might hurt the baby. What? Luffy, it won't hurt the baby. You sure? Yes. Super sure? Yes. Super sir. She silenced me with her lips. They felt hot and soft. Her hand immediately grabbed my crotch, stoking it with her palm up and down. I let a moan leave my throat and left a breath I didn't know I was holding. I slipped my hand in her underwear, grabbing her perfect ass, squeezing it powerfully. She groaned, grinding her body unconsciously on mine. I tilted her back, her head now laying on her pillow while her feet were wrapped around me. I took off my shirt, revealing my toned body, and noticed her eyes were glued on it. She used her hand to trace every scare on it lovingly. I was scared to touch her. I felt like she was fragile. Maybe the baby growing inside her was, but she probably wasn't. She was the same strong woman I fell in love with. She got up, standing on her feet. I was left sitting on the bed on my knees. My head turned to her. She took a step back and then took the white dress off, letting it fall on the hardwood floors. She looked stunning. Every curve on her body fitted perfectly. Every inch of her skin felt smooth and soft. She looked like a goddess standing before a mere human. She was standing in her lavender-colored undies and my body begged and ached for her touch. Her orange hair was moved to one side as she turned to me, her back, and moved closer. Can you undo it for me? She asked slyly. To be honest, my hands were trembling. As I was fidgeting with the fabric of her bra, an intrusive thought of ripping it apart came on my mind, but I brushed it away, too scared for my life, and poke it. I managed to undo the hook, and she took it off, still not facing me. She turned around and touched her tits, playing with her nipples. She had backed away enough to be out of my reach, not that I couldn't stretch my hand and reach her, but I was quite enjoying myself with her putting on a show for me. When she felt that it was enough, she turned around again and pulled down her panties. Her legs were slightly open when she bent over to take it off her feet. While bent over, I could see everything. The curves on her perfect butt, her entrance, and her lips swollen from anticipation. They were coated in thick moisture, and I couldn't keep my hands to myself anymore. I got up and stood behind her, waiting for her to come back up. When she did, I grabbed her wrist, turning her around before pinning her on the wall. I brought her legs up and she wrapped them around my lower back. I kissed her roughly and hungrily as she ruffled my hair with her hands. My grip was on her ass, helping me move her so that I was grinding against her. My dick was spasming violently. She slided off of me and back on her feet before dropping on her knees. Those cat burglar hands unzipped my pants in no time, and she pulled them down, revealing my cock. I sighed in relief as the discomfort now became a painful need. She looked at it and licked her lips, getting a drip of my pre-cum to form and slide down on my shaft. She caught it with her tongue before reaching her hands on the base. I could feel the pressure and pleasure as she slided her tongue back on the tip, placing her mouth around it and sucking whatever was left. I let out a long groan as she pumped her head up and down, sucking and licking in the process. My hands automatically grabbed her head and helped her with the pace that felt best. The pleasure was ecstatic and my body moved on its own. I groaned as my hands grabbed her wrists and pulled them back, pinning them on the wall. Now the pace was given by my hips, which were vigorously slamming into her mouth. I could feel her moaning and sending vibrations throughout my entire body. My vision was blurry. The only picture in my mind was my dick between her lips before letting my last violent thrusts. Her head was now pinned on the wall by my hips as she swallowed my cum that came to her mouth in hot waves. She pulled her body away as she cleared her mouth with the back of her hand, making the scene even more erotic. She was panting heavily, and so was I. I took a moment to catch my breath before carrying her from the floor to the bed. I was standing in between her legs on the edge of her bed. I kissed her on the lips before moving on her neck, a spot she was particularly sensitive. She breathed out my name when I lightly sucked on it. I moved down on her breast and licked her nipple. She groaned in pleasure but was not ready for what came next. I blew some cold air on her nipple, making it hard as a rock. She took a sudden sharp breath and arched her back, letting a moan out. "Luffy, please. Don't tease me." Her body was warm and silky. I touched the sides to her tummy, before planting a kiss there. I worked my way to her womanhood, planting kisses and from her pubic area to the underwear line between her pussy and her thighs. She especially loved that spot as she groaned loudly, bringing her hips upwards. My hands quickly enough stabilized them on the bed's surface so that she couldn't move at all. She struggled, trying to let her hips closer to my face, but couldn't surpass my strength. I left a light kiss on her vulva, and she caught the bedsheets in a deadly grip. She moaned and I licked her labias, moving my tongue in places that I knew would leave her unsatisfied but begging for more. She said nothing, although her hips struggled again under my grip. I blew on her pussy and she whimpered, "Luffy, please. Stop teasing me. Please." She managed to say between breaths, "You know what to say," I told her, winking at her while my finger passed by her entrance. She grinded her teeth and grunted, "Please, Captain." My middle finger immediately slipped inside her juices making the job easier. She gasped for air and her eyes shut close. I slipped another finger and moved them in a pace that she was screamed from pleasure. My thumb traced circles on her clit, and my fingers curled inside her. Her legs opened up for me widely as her panting and moaning became music in my ears. "Luffy. More. I want more." "I do, too," I managed to say before grabbing my dick. I pumped it twice to get the blood flowing before placing it in her entrance. She gave me a quiet nod and I thrusted my hips inside her. I felt her tight walls sucking me in as she brought her hips upwards, rubbing against mine. I watched her breasts wiggling with every move and thrust, her body muscles tensing up each time she grinded against me. She was beautiful. Her moves stopped. She slided me out of her and turned on her belly. She opened her legs and lifted her ass in the air, waiting for me patiently. I grabbed my now dripping wet erection and placed it in her vagina's entrance again. I slided in, but this time it was different. Her walls felt tighter and hotter. My dick was reaching places that couldn't reach before, and the view of her round ass was amazing. She was not feeling the same either. I could see her grabbing onto the pillow for dear life as her moans had turned into a painfully pleasured whine. I moved my hips in and out and gradually built my rhythm to our liking. I was going fast, and she was screaming. My hand found her clitoris and rubbed circles on it. "Luffy. I'm close." "Me too," I admitted with my eyes shut tightly. I was about to pull out like we did every other time, but she grabbed my hips with her hand and motioned me to keep going. "There's no need to pull out," she said, groaning. I grunted as my dick slammed into her vagina roughly. I was coming and simultaneously she was too. We both screamed each other names as her pussy sucked my dick and I poured my liquid inside her. I fell on the bed feeling full and tired. She laid there motionless before turning to me and kissing my cheek. My arm slipped under her head and with the other I brought her closer to me. And we slept there, naked, like our love. True, simple and strong, unconditional and undying. She is the woman of my life. Luffy. 2 months had passed and Nami was in the 3rd month of her pregnancy. The nausea and sickness had passed and her belly had grown slightly. Now we were sleeping together in Robin's and Nami's room while Robin volunteered to sleep in Zoro's gym. Today, Frankie announced that our master bedroom was ready. Nami had picked beautiful pink flowers from the last island we've been to, which she dried to put in the vase on her nightstand. Frankie had made a baby bassinet that was placed next to a king-size bed. Nami's eyes shined when she saw the big room. It was indeed amazing and Frankie had done an absolutely amazing work. I laid down on our new bed with Nami laying next to me. She was wearing a teal flowy dress and her hair had 2 perfect little braids that met up on the back of her head like a crown. I still can't imagine that there's a baby inside me. Your baby, she whispered to herself while stroking her stomach, and I nodded. I put my head on it and waited for a sign but got nothing back and Nami laughed at my disappointment. I touched her belly and kissed it. Her laughter quieted down and she blushed. I stared in her eyes and she shyly looked back. I love you. Me too, she said lovingly. There was a commotion outside and I lifted my head up. Luffy! We're under attack! Usopp shouted. I got outside in milliseconds and saw Zoro, Sanji and Brook ready to fight. Nami! You stay there! I shouted as soon as I saw the enemy. It was him. Akainu. He was standing on his marine ship, a bunch of Navy soldiers under him. You finally came, Monkey D. Luffy. Akainu. I growled. Surrender quietly or sink in the sea. Never! I screamed at the top of my lungs while charging at him with my fist pulled back. I won't let him take away everything from me again. Not my crewmates, not my love, and neither my child. I'll live freely and on my own rules. Under no one's control, and I'll never surrender. Akainu used his magma fist to block mine. Zoro, Sanji, Brook and Robin cleared the rest of the marine soldiers while Usopp was hiding and Frankie was preparing Sunny for an emergency coup de burst. Chopper was hanging around with Nami keeping her safe in our room. I tried to kick him, and he dodged my kick, moving to the side. He produced lava from his hands dripping onto the ship and threw it on me. I blocked it with hockey, protecting my body from the burning substance. On the way, he killed marine soldiers, but he never stopped. He killed his own people before my eyes with no care whatsoever. What justice? What protection? What safety? You guys are outrageous. You disgust me, I loudly claimed. He looked at me like I was crazy. I won't take that from a little filthy pirate like you, I smirked. Is that why I'm a Yonko now? He turned red from both anger and heat. H made a sea of lava out of his body and shot it on me. This time I dodged and served him a punch in the gut. He grunted and whipped a stream of blood on his mouth with the back of his hand. I was on high alert mode. I wouldn't let a single one of them in the ship while Nami was in there. However, he didn't let his guard down either. He punched my face hardly and I flew back on my ship. We had been fighting for more than hours. Magma mixed with rubber and sweat with blood. I used my 4th gear, jumping up and down from friction. I loaded my King Kong gun while he was now a body covered in lava. I couldn't see where his face was, but it didn't matter. This is from Ace. I screamed, frustrated. I shot my attack and he was sent flying on the pretty sunset before falling in the salty water with a loud splash. Every Navy soldier that was fighting rushed to his safety, swimming forcefully. Frankie loaded Sunny's coup de burst, and we took off in the sky. I run back in the room to make sure Nami was feeling alright. She looked at me and I could tell that she was not feeling good. Her eyes were red and her lips plump. She had been crying. I rushed on her side and hugged her tightly. She whimpered and hugged me back. I was so scared. She sobbed. I know, I'm so sorry, I said, panting from the fight. I planted a kiss on her temple and soothed her back. Chopper left quietly, smiling, relieved that everything went well. We headed outside to get some fresh air. Her crying face replaced by a charming smile. I took her hands in my palms and looked in her eyes. She stared confused. I'm never gonna let anybody hurt you and our baby girl. You both deserve the world and I'm going to give it you, even if die for it. I love you so much, I cannot imagine a world without you. I'll never leave you alone or unprotected. I want you to trust me, I'll always be doing my best to come back at you. I'll always want to be near you. I'll always love you. So, I'll give you my heart. First of all, we don't know if it's a girl. So Nami, I continued ignoring her comment. Will you marry me? She stood there, speechless and motionless. Frozen in the sound of the sentence. Like those words could not glue themselves next to each other. Like this phrase was too much to take in. She was now awake. Finally, breaking out of her statue-like figure. Why yes, she whispered. Her face flushed, and her eyes watery. Her beautiful lips formed a smile, and she looked blissful. I smiled back and kissed her on the lips. I couldn't care less that everyone was watching. All I wanted and cared about right now was her. The woman of my dreams. Everyone started clapping. Frankie, Brooke and Usopp looked at us while crying their eyes out. Robin had teared up but kept her composure. Zoro smiled and Sanji grinned as well, acknowledging our love as he lit up a cigarette from a box in his pocket. They were all cheering and shouting happily. Unconditional support and love was all that surrounded our ship that night, and there would be more to come. Nami, I hit my month mark of my pregnancy. I've become heavy and each move was difficult. I was constantly having pain in my back and my pelvic floor limiting my movement. Luffy had been extremely supportive all this time. He understood that we had to avoid every possible fight. He brought me food and even massaged my feet. He was always considerate of my needs, and this side of him pampering me made me fall deeper for him. Today was even more special. He had destroyed Robin's flowers and some branches of my orange trees to make me a bouquet of flowers. I couldn't be angry at him for ruining our garden since the motive behind the distraction was pure and cute. Every time I hissed in pain, he rushed on my side to ask if everything was all right, even if that meant to stop in the middle of his eating session. His loving hands rubbed my back and helped me get up and lay down every day. His favorite moment of the day was when we were relaxing on the bed, and he touched my stomach feeling kicks and punches. He knew his baby was ready to fight. My belly was full of kisses and caresses. Robin was exceptionally curious about the growing infant inside me. She had read books of maternity and child raising, and she passed some super useful information. I could feel her excitement despite her dull expression. We were currently sitting in the library readying one of those books. Hers was called Things About My Toddler, and mine was The Art of Painless Labor. I was shaking thinking about how little was the time I had left until that moment comes. Robin? She lowered her book and looked at me. I'm scared. She smiled genuinely and grabbed my hand, squeezing it. Everything will go all right, Nami. Luffy will be there to support you, and Chopper is an outstanding doctor. He's also gonna be there for you. Yes, do you want me to be there too? She asked, hopeful. Will you? I said, excited. Of course. I saw something light up in her eyes. It's like she wanted me to ask her to be there for quite some time now. I closed my book and placed it on the table before hugging her tightly. It was an awkward side hug since my belly grew so big. Thanks, Robin. Weeks later, I was taking a bath in the tub, relaxing my muscles. One more week. That's all it was going to take for me to bring this infant in the world. A world beautiful and cruel, filled with happiness and sadness, with laughter and tears. My baby had to learn to survive, to breathe, to swallow and eat, to crawl, to chew, to stand and talk, to walk, to play, to fight, to scream, to live, and all that while its father was conquering the world with his kindness and its mother showing him the way. I wanted this baby more than ever. I was anticipating the day it'll come, and Luffy was too. Every day he'd ask me if today was the day, and he'd look disappointed when it was not. He'd later smile, saying that it probably stays in for the better. I loved how cute he looked when he talked to the baby, whispering sweet nothings to the belly and having entire conversations with it. He said that he could hear it talking to him, and I laughed. Luffy was positive it was a girl. I couldn't tell for sure, and Chopper said he didn't have the equipment to learn, so we'd have to wait. The only prediction he made was that it could be a boy from the way the heart was beating. But this was inaccurate, and it could be a girl with a strong heartbeat. Whether it was a girl or a boy didn't matter. All I prayed for was a happy and healthy human that's strong enough to take in the fact that it's the child of the Pirate King. I felt a sharp pain. It was sudden and short. I brushed it off, thinking it was probably from sitting in the bathtub too much. I got up, grabbed a towel to dry myself, and got dressed before heading outside. Luffy was waiting for me on the door. "How do you feel, Nami?" he said, smiling gently. "Good, just a little tired. Want me to help you to lay down?" "Sure," I said, kissing his cheek. We walked past everyone to our room. I could feel the tension in the air. They all knew it could be coming any moment now. We entered the room and I gasped, feeling another sharp pain. This time it lasted a little bit more. Luffy immediately caught on that. He lifted and placed me on the bed before rushing out searching for Chopper. Listening to his screams for Chopper, the rest of the crew grew silent. The door was open and I could see Zoro opening one eye while been awakened from his nap. He grabbed one sword and looked alert. Sanji leaned on the wall lighting a cigarette. Usopp panicked and tried to calm his nerves doing breathing exercises, a way he learned to cope with his fights. I saw Brooke and Frankie getting emotional, whipping tears from their eyes. A strong pain hit me again when I heard Chopper and Luffy rush in. Robin followed them close behind. The pain lasted a couple seconds and then I was back to normal. "Robin, can you bring me some warm towels and boiling water? Also, I want you to bring to me my stethoscope. It's on the infirmary table." Chopper gave orders calmly and Robin nodded. "Chopper, is she gonna give birth now? Like now? Luffy was the only one freaking out in the room. "Calm down, I'm gonna do a checkup, and if she is in labor it could take up to hours till she gives birth." "So long?" Luffy asked and pouted his lips. "Yes, so please be patient and relax, don't make her anxious." Luffy nodded and looked at me. It was the third time a sharp pain hit me, and this time it started in my lower back. I closed my eyes and breathed through my nose while it lasted, Luffy caressing my hair and cheek. When I opened them, Chopper looked at me smiling and nodding. "That's right, good job, Nami, and Luffy, you too, keep supporting her." "Thanks, doctor," I said and winked at him. "You don't have to call me that, you stupid human, it's not like it makes me happy," he said, doing his happy dance of shyness. "Nami, take off your underwear, I need to do an examination," Chopper said, and I obliged while Luffy helped me. Robin walked in, giving Chopper the stuff he asked for. Chopper opened his bag and put his medical tools into the boiling water to sterilize them. He then turned into his heavy point form and placed a towel under my butt. He wore his professional gloves and, holding a cotton ball dipped in tincture of iodine, he whipped my private area to sterilize it. "Nami, this might hurt a little," he said, and I prepared myself. Luffy held my hand while Chopper inserted his fingers to do his check. I felt uncomfortable and a lot of pressure, but I could handle it. He took his fingers out and removed his gloves. "Nami, I believe you should give it an hour or two, but I believe that you might be in labor. You are CM dilated right now. You can get up and walk, but if the contractions become more frequent and last longer, you should call me. You can eat something light, I'll speak to Sanji about it. You still have a long way to go," he said professionally. "Thanks, Chopper." You're welcome." He danced a little before leaving the room. Robin smiled and followed Chopper outside. "Whenever you need me, call me," she said before exiting the room. Luffy helped me with putting my underwear back on and he sat down beside me. Another wave of pain shot through me. Luffy hugged me and kissed my temple. I tried my best to stay calm and it passed. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Good, when there's no pain, and kinda hyped." "Yeah, me too," I laughed. "I could tell by the shake of your feet," I said, pointing out to his twitching leg. He laughed as well when he realized it. "Are you scared?" he inquired reluctantly. "Kinda, but I feel secure. There's some kind of unusual strength that is building up inside me." He grinned. "Then you got this." I nodded. "I'll be here. I hope I could help you somehow. Being next to me is really important. That's all I need from you right now." He hugged me as pain hit my guts again. This time it was harder. 1 hour had passed since the first construction, so I only guessed that this was it. "I'm gonna become a mum soon, Nami." Hours had passed. Contractions had already become quite intense that I could barely speak through them. Chopper had checked me again, and now I was at cm dilated. I walked on the green deck with Luffy supporting me. I knew that this was the last chance before I gave birth to walk outside, since my legs had already started to give up with each contraction. Nami, do you want to go back in? Not yet, I said, breathing finally some fresh night air. I could see everyone's concerned looks. Usopp gave me a high five and told me that I got this. I smiled. That's when it hit me again. I couldn't stand. I felt water dripping on my legs. My legs were shaky until they completely gave up, and if not for Luffy, I would have fallen on my knees. Luffy! Called Chopper. His eyes widened. I'll call Chopper! Usopp shouted to us from afar. Luffy lifted me in the air, carried me in bridal style on my bed. Chopper came rushing in and Robin followed him quickly. What's wrong? Usopp said it was urgent. Nami had peed on herself, Luffy said, laughing. I resisted punching him and breathed through a new constriction. It was way worse than the ones before. I moaned and groaned. I grabbed the sheets beneath me and grinded my teeth. Luffy stopped laughing and started panicking. What's wrong, Nami? Luffy, she didn't pee. That's her water breaking. Nami, I'll check you again. I couldn't talk. He checked and looked at me seriously. Nami, you're a centimeter. You're getting close. It will go faster from now on. When you feel ready to push, tell me. I'll be here. Robin, prepare some more towels, and Luffy, bring me the bassinet closer and help me undress Nami and place her on these towels. Everyone nodded and moved as Chopper had instructed. Chopper looked nervous but confident. He had done this in the past when he was in his hometown. I had hardly enough time to breathe before the next contraction. I felt nausea. Luffy stared at me while stroking my hair. He had started tearing up. He came closer to my ear to whisper, I'm so sorry. I wish I could take your pain. I'm sorry. I was confident he wouldn't let me go through this again, but he wouldn't understand how happy I was to be here. All I could do to assure him that it was all right was to snuggle in his arms. The pressure was insane. I felt the baby move downwards and my pelvic bone breaking. I screamed and Luffy held me tight. 2 more hours had passed. I felt like I was about to pass out any moment now. Suddenly, the pressure grew worse. My body moved on its own and started pushing. Luffy! Tell Chopper. I'm pushing. Now! I panted before screaming. I was holding back for Chopper to arrive. Luffy opened the door and Chopper was standing right outside talking with Robin. They both hurried in and Chopper immediately got to work. He wore a new pair of gloves and checked me again. 10. Nami, I want you to sit down a little. Luffy, can you hold her legs back there? He asked while pushing my feet back. Luffy sat behind me, having me between his legs, and held my legs in the air. He kissed my temple and I laid my back on his chest. You've got this, Nami. He whispered before kissing me again. Nami, when your contraction comes, I just want you to push. I nodded and I did just that. I see the head. Push, push, harder. Luffy stretched his head and looked. He was in shock. And Nami, you're bleeding too much. It's normal, she's alright, Chopper butted in. Nami, don't listen to him, I want you to focus. I can see it, Luffy said to himself before coming back. I took a deep breath and pushed as hard as I could. I felt the pain burning my vagina and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Luffy was holding me tightly, and Robin sat close to me. I took a breath and with the second contraction I pushed harder. I could feel baby's head almost exiting. That's it, Nami, try again. I can't do this, I shouted. No, you can, you've got this. Come on, push. Push. Chopper instructed and helped me birth. You've got it, Nami, I love you, you've got this. Luffy was whispering sweet nothings in my ear and his grip on my legs tightened almost like he was trying to help in the pushing process. It's been minutes and I was pushing again and again. This was the time I felt the baby unstuck from wherever it was and its head was almost out. Nami, I want you to push a couple more times. We're almost there. Luffy, let her legs fall. Give me your hand, Nami, and give me a little push. He spoke and I did just that. He placed it on my opening and I touched some hair, and I was flabbergasted. Luffy, if you want you can try, too. Luffy reached his hand over mine and touched our baby's hair. He looked at me shocked, tears steaming down his face. Robin brought us tissues to wipe out hands. Okay, we're almost there. Luffy, hold her legs again, and Nami, give me your biggest push. I did just that. Touching our baby gave me motivation and strength I didn't know I had. I gripped Luffy's legs and gave it my all. I knew everyone on this ship could hear my scream, and I could just imagine their faces. I felt it sliding down and ripping my opening. I pushed harder, and Chopper maneuvered the baby so he would help it out. I pushed and pushed. That's it, Nami! You're there! Go on, don't stop! He shouted, and I knew this was the moment. Luffy was tearing up behind me, and I was red from pushing hard. I felt the shoulders exiting, and then the legs flew away, slipping into Chopper's arms. I was exhausted and shocked by how quickly the pain was reduced. I heard a long cry. It's a girl, Chopper announced before placing her on my chest. I got her with my hands trembling from the adrenaline and fear that I might hurt her. Luffy was fully sobbing. I looked at him, and he had the most precious face I'd ever seen. He was happy, so happy he was shaking. I then turned my gaze on my daughter. She was filled in a slimy substance, and she was crying. Robin came with a towel and helped cleaning her up. She was beautiful. So small and fragile and so precious. Her little eyes were closed. And her little hands in two little fists. Her hair were dark like her father's. Luffy got up and went to grab some water in the kitchen. I heard the door creak open and silence on the deck. It's a girl, Luffy shouted, and the crew cheered. When he came back, he got her in his arms. She was now awake and staring at him. Her big honey eyes were glued on his face, but that quickly changed into a cry. She's hungry, Chopper said. I'm gonna show you how to breastfeed. He took her from Luffy and placed her in my arms while I lifted my shirt. Her little mouth was placed on my nipple, and she immediately lunged on in. She was hungry, or she just got her father's appetite. After I breastfed and Chopper tidied my tearing up with stitches, I laid down for a nap. Exhaustion took over me, and I smiled, drift away, thinking that we did it. We were now parents. Welcome to the world, Luna, Luffy. The sound of a freshly born baby echoed in our room, high-pitched and loud. Nami stirred in her bedsheets, a light groan coming from her before she hissed in pain. My eyes shot open and I rushed to the baby's side. She was crying. Her eyes puffed and red as tomatoes, and her little fists clenched tight. I gently tilted my body over her crib and held her in my arms. Little Luna was feisty. My body swayed in a slow rhythm as I rocked her back and forth, trying to calm her down. It was useless, since her cries got louder. As much as I was admiring her attitude, I felt bad thinking that she woke the whole crew up. Nami was watching me from the bed while fighting to stay awake. It was the second sleepless night since Luna's birth, and Nami was still in pain. She unsuccessfully tried to suppress a yawn before motioning me to come closer. I sat down on the bed, next to her, and carefully passed Luna in her arms. She's probably hungry, Nami said, smiling as she lifted her shirt. Luna's little mouth immediately caught Nami's nipple, and I sat there staring, fascinated at her eating abilities. I placed my hand over Nami's thigh. She looked up in my eyes, and I smiled widely at her. You're an amazing mom, Nami. She blinked twice before tears started to form in her eyes. She sniffed, and I grabbed a tissue for her. Come on. I didn't say anything bad. Don't be mad at me. I'm not mad at you, idiot. She whispered / shouted at me. Now mad? Thank you. You are an amazing dad, too. Her smile was sweet and calm. Her eyes gentle and tired. Luna had let go of her nipple and had fallen asleep peacefully in Nami's arms. I leaned over and got back our baby. She stayed asleep now in my embrace, and I placed her in her crib again. I walked over at my side of the bed and sat down, leaning me body on the headboard. I closed my eyes and sighed. Nami rested her head on my chest, and as soon as she did that I wrapped my arms around her, before kissing her temple. With her head lifted up, Nami kissed me passionately. That was not a kiss that was leading to intimacy. It was an emotional one. I could feel her heart pouring into her kiss as her hand caressed my sides. I broke the kiss and our foreheads touched. I love you. Nami smiled and slightly blushed. I love you too. Now let's get some sleep, cause we'll need it. Nami. The morning was cold, and the comfort of my blanket seemed ideal. However, the cry of my newborn was piercing, though my ears loud and demanding, filled with hunger and need for attention. I checked for Luffy, hoping he would get up, but he was nowhere to be found. I guessed that he went either to the toilet, or he was assaulting the poor fridge. I took the comforters off of me, and the chilly temperature hit my bare feet. I tagged down my pajama pants as I tried to get up. The pain of my tearing in sticks was awful, but I surpassed that to get to my baby. She was throwing a fit, kicking and punching. I placed her in my arms and started the breastfeeding. Suddenly, the door shot open and Luffy rushed with a chunk of meat hanging from his mouth. My eyes automatically narrowed at the sight. Luffy! What are you doing? I heard Luna scream, so I rushed her to comfort her. I sighed. I hope you haven't touched our food supplies for the month. Luffy side-eyed the wall, and his lips pouted. And no, of course I wouldn't. I slammed my hand over his mouth. If you touch them again, I'll make sure you won't eat anything until Luna hits puberty. He stared at me wide-eyed before mumbling to himself, Mum, Nami is scarier. Luna had started laughing. We stared at her dumbfounded. I looked at Luffy, and he looked back at me as confused and amused. Did she laugh? He asked, unsure, pointing at his child. I guess so, I claimed, proud. She was placed back on her crib, and I grabbed my notebook to write down the achievement. Her first laugh. Nami. The night was warm and humid. I was sitting on the swing listening to the waves crashing against the ship. The sound, a mesmerizing lullaby to my ears. My little miracle baby on my hands, finally asleep after hours of screaming agony. I felt exhausted as my eyes slowly gave up and my body got heavy. A pair of strong arms caught me before falling on my back. It startled me and my eyes shot open, making sure that Luna was doing fine. She was now months old, and lively as ever. Her daddy's genes strong and pretty obvious. Once I made sure she was fine, I looked behind me, searching for the eyes of the man that saved me. Luffy was staring back at me, his gaze exhausted but still loving. You almost fell. He whispered in my ear. I'm tired, Luffy, I know. He looked into the sea. Raising a baby was not an easy job, especially under the conditions we were in. The Navy had been searching for us the past year, and Luffy was forced to put his dream aside for the sake of his baby. He wasn't happy. He wasn't fulfilled. However, he was mature enough to not complain about the life we made. He loved Luna, he loved me. But half of him had died the moment Luna was born, when the realization hit him that he couldn't live the life he imagined to live. Luffy, I said, and looked into his eyes, hoping to get all of his attention. Yes, I really need to talk to you, I claimed, and then looked into the sea again, hoping to calm me like it usually does. But it can wait until tomorrow, I added with a yawn. Sure, he said, smiling at me. He carefully took Luna from my arms, and then waited for me to get up from the swing before heading inside. He laid her down on her bed, positioning her comfortably. I laid on my bed as well and rolled on my side facing the wall. My body tensed when I felt the mattress sink in from his weight. He laid on his side facing the other wall behind me. I felt overwhelmed for a moment. I didn't want this life. I didn't want to see him trapped every day between his loved ones and his passion. A tear escaped my eyes and soaked my sky blue pillowcase, then a sniff followed. And then another. The weight on the bed swift again, and quickly Luffy hugging me from behind. What's wrong? He whispered, concerned, stalking my hair. I hesitated but turned to face him. Luffy, I exclaimed as silently as possible, my voice cracking in the process. I don't like this. His gaze showed that he knew exactly what I was talking about. He hugged me tightly, kissing my temple. Me neither, he said. But I love you and Luna too much to give up on you. That's all that matters to me right now. You're not happy, Luffy. I'm your lover, but first and foremost, I'm your crewmate. And seeing how me and our daughter are keeping you back like that makes me feel horrible. I love you, Luffy. But I don't want to stand in your way anymore, I said, whimpering. I buried my face in his chest. What do you suggest we do? I looked up at him. How about I stay back, with Luna? He looked at me shocked. There's no way I'm leaving you behind, he said, almost hurt that I suggested that. There's no other way, Luffy. I have to stay somewhere safe while you achieve your dream. And when you're done with that, When you're free, when you're the king of the pirates, that's when I'll come with you again to finish my dream of drawing the world's map. I'll stay back and wait for you. We'll be waiting for you together," I said and gave him a sad smile. "Would that make you happy?" he inquired. "Yes, very," I said and smiled even more widely. He sighed and hugged me again as tight as he could. "I'll think about it. Thanks for being there for me, Nami." I looked up and kissed him. It was a long kiss like no other we had shared. It was a night full of pure love and passion. He said he loved me so many times that the stars in the night sky seemed few. That man was making my heart feel full while beating for him. He was my captain, my love, my world. Narrator. The next day, Luffy and Nami announced to the crew that they'd be heading to the next island so that Nami and Luna could stay for a while. Luffy was hopeful that it wouldn't take long for him to become the pirate king and promised that he'd do his best. The crew was happy with their decision, although many tears were shed by everyone. Frankie was trying to convince everyone he wasn't sad Nami and Luna were leaving and those were just manly tears he was shedding. Usopp was trying to make silly faces to erase his sadness with Luna's silly giggles, and Sanji was crying over the loss of his beloved Nami Swan. Robin was comforting Chopper with Jinbei by her side, and Brook was making the scene even worse by adding sad violin music. Even Zoro's single eye had become watery, but he was blaming it on the stupid cook. The crew was a mess but still as bonded as ever. A few days later, the crew docked on a peaceful island where they found a place for Nami and Luna to live. The rest of the Straw Hats said their goodbyes, with the most difficult one being Luffy's. He was kissing and hugging Luna while also hugging Nami. The crew even gave them a moment to themselves. Luffy took off his hat and stared at it for a second, then placed it on Luna's very small and fragile head before kissing her plump cheek for the last time. He turned to Nami, giving a bittersweet kiss on the lips, and then departed for his adventure. Waves, enemies, fights and blood. Tears, laughter and joy. Those mixed feelings and even more followed the Straw Hats' adventures. Until one day the news were writing all about the new pirate king. Him, Monkey D. Luffy was the front and biggest page of every newspaper in the entire world. He made it to Raftel and achieved what every pirate aspired to be. The king of the kings. The freest person on the world. He felt fulfilled and happy, but he wasn't sure if it was appropriate to show yet. He needed to make sure they were doing fine too. He missed his beloved hat, but most of all, he missed his adorable daughter and his amazing girl. They finally reached their destination. They docked on the same island after exactly 1 year. Luffy stepped outside and looked around him. A man in his S that seemed like the mayor of the small seaside village was followed by a little girl that was barely walking straight. Her jet black hair swaying from the sea breeze under the old and worn-out straw hat. A smile was slowly forming on Luffy's lips while his heartbeat started to fasten. His daughter had grown so much. A wave of guilt washed over him. He snapped out of his thoughts when he saw a woman running behind them. "Luna! Come back here and don't bother Uncle Julio." She ran like the wind, her stunning orange locks wrapped in a ponytail. He recognized her immediately. This was the woman he was in love with. The woman that he was missing every day and night. The woman that he could give the world to if she asked. At that moment he realized that this was his one piece. This was a greater treasure than anything he'd seen in this world. The woman caught the girl and lifted her in her arms. The girl giggled and then locked eyes with Luffy. "Dada," he heard her say, and he swore he could melt in a puddle. He got emotional and a tear escaped his eye, but he was quick to wipe it away as more started to form. Nami froze in her tracks. She felt heat on her cheeks as her heart pounded loudly in her ears. She could sense him behind her. How much had he changed? Did he still love her? Questions flooded her mind instantly. She slowly turned her head and met him. He was right there before her. Healthy and very much alive like the news were describing him to be. She wanted to run to him and hug him, but she was scared. He took the first steps which gave her the courage to copy him. They met halfway on the rotten wood of the harbor. 0 words were exchanged. What was appropriate to talk about after an entire year? How was she supposed to start the conversation? He was nervous. He knew what he wanted and was willing to take the risk. He leaned in and kissed her gently on the lips. It caught her by surprise, but she'd lie if she said that she didn't need to do the same. She missed him. His smell. His taste. His smile. He missed her too. Her eyes. Her voice. Her attitude. They stayed there for a minute. Lips locked, eyes closed. They knew the spark was still there. Luna was happy to interrupt their moment. She smacked her father on the cheek, giving him a taste of her own newfound strength, and then started giggling. Luffy chuckled at her antics. His little girl looked so much like him, and he missed her. Take her, Nami said, handing him his daughter. The little girl could recognize him through the photos which Nami made sure to hang all over the house. Luffy carefully got her in his arms, even though he was scared to touch his once fragile baby. He hugged her tightly, and Luna also felt the need to lean into her father's arms. She was his child in every way, and he promised to never leave her side again. He'd do anything to protect her. Hey Luna, he whispered, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you. I promised to be a better father. Right now, I'll do anything to keep you safe. I love you so much. Nami broke down crying, and Luffy turned to her, kissing her temple. I love you, Nami. His voice was rougher than she remembered, but it was still him. He was finally home.